Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. All right, everybody, welcome back to Pour and Explore. I am your host, Nick Elliott, former winemaker, chef, and a guy who loves to taste wine. And that is what we are going to talk about today. Today, we are going to chat about one of my favorite ways to experience wine, and that is hosting your own tasting right at home, or maybe in your office with a group of colleagues, just having a great time, enjoying each other's company, and enjoying some great wine. Now, whether you're brand new to wine or just looking to spice things up in your next get-together, I'm here to show you how to do that, and you don't need a wine cellar. Or a tuxedo, for that matter. Let's just create an unforgettable experience. So here's what we're going to cover today. We are going to cover how to host a tasting with confidence. We're going to make it easy, and we're going to make it low stress with the setup and the preparation. We are going to find some fun ways to keep guests engaged during the tasting, and how I can help you find the perfect bottles, whether you're shopping local or online. So grab a glass, and I will get into it right now. So here's the deal. Wine, to me, and I hope for you, is about connection. I don't typically, although my wife is traveling this week, and I have been sitting at home alone enjoying a glass of wine by myself, but that's not typically how it goes. It's usually she or I or some friends or a group, or I'm out doing a wine tasting or a wine tour with folks somewhere flitting around the world. But for me, wine is all about connection. And when you're hosting a tasting at home or perhaps in your office, you're creating a space for fun, learning, laughter, of course, and a little delicious discovery. What are the benefits? Well, number one, you're in control. You own the guest list, you own the menu, you own the dress code, or lack thereof. Tasting wine at home or in a corporate setting is going to be completely different, and might add more intimate than going out to a tasting room. Now, I'm not saying that you should not do that. By all means, I want you to get out there and enjoy as much wine as you possibly can. But, maybe you don't have a wine tasting room or a winery that's that close to you, and you want to enjoy some great wines in a tasting experience. I can help you do that. And, some other benefits, you don't need to drive or Uber anywhere. You don't need to hire a car, so you can be safe and sound, at home, and everyone can relax afterwards and have some food, have some great conversation, and go on their way. This is a chance to really connect with your people in a meaningful way. Your family, your friends, again, your colleagues. I love doing corporate tastings, because it gives you a way to connect with people that you may not connect with on a regular basis. Wine tastings are amazing for team building, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Think birthdays, book clubs, team bonding, client appreciation, or just a cozy Friday night. There's no sommelier suit required, just your curiosity and a corkscrew and a few bottles of amazing wine. So, how do we set this up? Let's make something simple and stylish, because no one wants wine night to feel like it's finals week. Let's keep it easy and impactful. We don't need to stress out about it. Let's choose our format first and foremost. Is the format going to be themed in any way? Perhaps we're tasting all reds. Perhaps we're doing rosé from around the world. Get one from southern France, get one from California, get one from Italy. Great rosés being made all over the world. That would be a fun one. I'd go to that one. Are we going to do a progressive tasting? In other words, are we going to start light with maybe a Sauvignon Blanc and move our way through 4 or 5 wines all the way to deep, rich Tempranillo from Spain? That would be a fun one. Or are we going to do a regional spotlight, perhaps? Are we going to talk about wines from Tuscany? Are we going to talk about wines from Sonoma? Or are we going to enjoy all wines from South Africa? That would, again, be a great way to do it. And something that I love doing, something I talked about a couple episodes ago, is doing a compare and contrast, tasting the same grape from different regions. How much fun would that be? I did an episode a few weeks ago, talked all about terroir, and the terroir of a place. If you didn't listen to that episode, you definitely want to go back and check that out. Terroir, the land and the climate and the slope and the angle and all of that stuff is going to affect how that wine turns out. So how much fun would it be to taste a Pinot Noir from California next to a Pinot Noir from France and the Pinot Noir from New Zealand, just as an example. Lots and lots of fun. And, of course, if you need some help with all of this, you can come to the Wine Guy. Of course, home base for me and where I work mostly is here in Southern California, mainly in the San Diego area. But I would love to do a virtual tasting with you as well. It's something that became very popular during the pandemic. Let's get online and I will do a fun and interactive tasting with you. Bring my expertise and we can have a lot of fun. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show. Whenever we're talking about enjoying wine, I definitely feel that it's very important to make sure that we have something to pair with that wine. And of course, it doesn't necessarily need to be a full-on meal. Let's make sure that we've got some cheese, some olives, some nuts, some fruits, some crostini, and have a palate cleanser available like water or just some plain crackers, like water crackers, for example, do great. If we want to kick it up a few notches, do some wow pairings, out there. Chocolate, comes to mind, having that available, and let's pair some chocolate with, perhaps some Pinot Noir. Let's do some blue cheese, have that available, and we can pair that along with maybe some port or some Cabernet Sauvignon. Goat cheese and Sauvignon Blanc, goat cheese and Pinot Grigio are amazing pairings. And in just a few weeks, I'm going to be doing an episode about cheese and wine pairings, so stay tuned for that. And, these are just some ideas to really, really take your tasting to the next level. And of course, we're going to set the mood. Candles, string lights, even just a clean kitchen table or dining room table. That would certainly be helpful too. Again, we don't need to be crazy here, but, let's enjoy our time and let's have a little ambiance, is what I'm saying. But of course, if you want to do it in your garage under the crazy lights, the ugly lights as they call them, that's fine too. Let's offer some tasting cards, or some pieces of paper, simple pieces of paper where folks can write down ideas and thoughts, ideas on the flavors and the aromas that they're enjoying there. And I can certainly help you out with that as well. I've got some pre-prepared stuff that makes tastings a whole lot of fun. Make sure we have glasses, of course, make sure that we've got the accoutrement to be able to enjoy. And another thing I would say, is maybe not everyone wants to enjoy every single sip of the wine and swallow it. So maybe have a couple of pour buckets or spit buckets handy as well. That would be a nice little touch. And freestyle works as well, doing something more organized. However you want this to go down, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. This is your tasting. There are no rules unless you want there to be. So let's have fun with it. Hosting a wine tasting like a pro, there's a secret to it. Your job is not to teach. Your job is to guide. And, what I mean by that is, you can, again, put as much nerdiness into it as you'd like. Maybe your guests don't know as much about wine as you do. Or maybe you don't know anything about wine and just want to go out there and do it and have a good time. Let's plan something that is interesting and fun. That's really what it boils down to. When you're guiding your guests, whether it is in a private home setting or in a corporate setting, you're just going to guide them, and you're going to start simple. What are you tasting? That is a question that I love asking. What are you tasting? Don't tell them what they're tasting. Ask them what they're tasting. This is going to be a great way to engage with your guests and make sure that they are enjoying themselves and they feel like they've got some input into the evening. Another question I love to ask is, does this remind you of anything? What aromas are you smelling? What flavors are you tasting? I've got a great visual guide that I put out there called my aroma guide, and it is a visual reminder, or a visual tool I should say, on what you might be smelling or tasting in a particular wine. If you've ever taken a sip of wine and you just cannot describe the smell or the taste of the wine that you're enjoying, I created my aroma guide to help you, let's call it a little cheat sheet on what you may be tasting. But again, the question is, does this remind you of anything? Let's liken it to something that they've had in the past. Does it smell like blueberry pie? Does it smell like burnt wood? Does it smell like mushrooms? What is it smelling like, and what is it tasting like, and what can we liken it to in things that we've tasted before? And of course, a hugely important question is, do you like it? Not everyone in the group is going to like every single wine. I can almost guarantee that. I've seen it time and time and again. Do you like it? No? All right, well, let's move on to something else. That's a very, very important thing. And let's talk about some fun facts. Let's talk about the grape. Is that grape French grape? Is it an Italian grape? Is it a grape that, finds its home somewhere else? Maybe like Mendoza, Argentina, using Malbec as an example. Of course, it is a French grape, but I would say that Mendoza has really adopted Malbec as their national grape. Down in Uruguay, the same thing can go for Tannat, another amazing grape that I love, 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 the wines that are made from this grape. So let's talk about the grape, and let's learn about the grape. Where is it from? And, maybe there's some odd things about it. Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand can sometimes smell like passion fruit, and sometimes it can smell like jalapeno. So these are some really, really fun things that we can enjoy while we're doing our tasting, and it encourages conversation. Debate during wine tastings is, absolutely a natural thing. It happens all the time. Debate is good, and there are no wrong answers in wine. Again, like I said earlier, I don't like to tell people what they are going to taste. I don't like to tell people what I taste necessarily until I get some feedback from the audience. Strong opinions, second sips, whatever it takes to get out there and enjoy it and make it the most interactive. Some other tips for you, try a blind tasting and have the guests guess what they're drinking. That's definitely a fun one. I love doing that. It's really, really a good time. Let's let them vote, and have categories, most likely to succeed. No, the most surprising of the wines, or the most elegant of the wines, or the wine that's most likely to be chugged at a barbecue. These are some fun things that you can do to kick up the fun and kick up the interaction. How about a most poetic tasting note contest? You give everyone a little piece of paper to write things down on. Let's vote on who has the most interesting tasting note, the most interesting narrative on what they've been enjoying. And trust me, the hilarity will ensue. It'll be a lot of fun. All of this is to say, if this sounds exciting, but it sounds overwhelming, I have got your back. Whether you're looking for help choosing wines, planning the flow of the evening, or adding a dash of Wine Guy flair, I've got flair, I can help you put it all together. So here's what I offer. I offer custom wine suggestions tailored to your theme, your occasion, and most importantly, your budget. I'm going to help you source wines, and whether that's through local shops or online retailers, I'm going to help you do that. I love buying direct from wineries, so that could also be a possibility. And optional, but definitely something I can do, is help host that tasting with you, whether that is virtually or if you are wanting to do it in person here in the Southern California area. I would love to be able to do that for you. Maybe you want to include a little game or a pairing moment or a mini wine lesson. I'm going to help you build that all out. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to make your next occasion, your next team building exercise so much fun, and really make it great and make it the most it can possibly be. If that sounds great to you, you can certainly reach out to me via my website. That is thewineguy.vin, wineguy.vin, thewineguy.vin. DM me on the socials, or just comment here on this podcast. We'll definitely get back with you and help you plan something fun and interesting. Here are some more pro tips for you to make it fun and just keep the wine flowing and everyone having a good time. I talked about having a spit cup or a dump bucket. That is definitely going to be a great way to help people taste their wine more responsibly, especially if they're going to be driving home afterwards. Don't over-explain. That is another one. If you are a wine expert, we wine experts can sometimes feel that we have to go crazy on the explanations, and I can tell you by experience that is not what people want. Don't lecture your guests about what they're doing. If they have questions, they will ask them, encourage questions, and then you can answer the questions in an organized and fun way. We don't want to create a wine lecture here. It's supposed to be a good time. You definitely want to try the wines that you're enjoying before and after the snacks that you're providing. If we're having a little bit of Chardonnay and then we bite into an almond and then we try that Chardonnay again, how does it change? How do the flavors change? How does the experience change? These are fun little ways to do it, and the reason why we want to have food nearby. And then, maybe we're going to create a little mini ritual. Let's cheers to Pinot Noir. Let's cheers to, toast to the group and the good times. Let's really, really make this fun. The best tastings are never about getting it right. That is never the ultimate goal. Wine, life, everything is so personal to each and every one of us. It's not about getting it right. I hate that. Let's take the pomposity out of wine and just make it something fun. It's about curiosity. It's about laughter, discovering something new, and maybe making some new friends, That's a great way to think about that. All right, so let's recap. You don't need a vineyard. You don't need a winery. You don't need a wine degree. You don't need fancy stemware, a bow tie to create a memorable wine tasting. It's not necessary. All you need is a few bottles, a curious group of people, and the willingness to, pardon the pun, but pour and explore. That's what this is all about. Let's go out and have a good time. Now, if you want me to help with the planning of your own tasting at home or in the office, I again love doing corporate tastings as well. I do a lot of those, and they're really a lot of fun. Client appreciation again, team building, lots of fun ways to incorporate wine into the office. If you want help planning something, hit me up. Again, thewineguy.vin, V-I-N. Check me out on my socials. You're going to find those down the bottom here in the show notes. And, of course, while you're at it, while you're here, please like the episode if you enjoyed this one. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And, just go hit me up on social media and tell me how much you enjoyed the show. It would really, really mean a lot to me. And I am very, very thankful for your comments, your likes, and your follows. Hey, and tag me in your tasting pics. If you're going to go out there and you're going to do it, send me some pics of the fun and everyone having a great time. I love seeing how you bring this experience that I'm talking about today to life. And of course, folks, friends, always cheers to you. Appreciate you being here, and keep wondering and wandering. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, and your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.